James Ernest of the Grueling Truth here with Alex Hutchinson, author of Endure, Mind, Body, and the Curiously Elastic Limits of the Human Performance. So, Alex, the book came out on February 6th. How's it been received so far?
I've been really happy with the feedback I've received. It seems like a lot of people are finding it interesting, so I'm just hoping to get the word out as widely as possible.
So, why are you a lot of people's favorite running science geek?
Well, you could say there aren't that many running science geeks out there, so maybe it's small competition. But I have a sort of unique background in that before I became a journalist, I actually spent about a decade working as a physicist, so I was sort of deep in the science world. And I was also I ran for the Canadian national team as a long distance runner for about a decade. So eventually, I figured I should unite those two things and become a running science guy. And but there aren't too many of those. So, but a lot of people in the endurance world are very kind of analytic. They want to understand what it is that's happening when they hit their limits, when they reach that point where they feel like they can't go on. And so what I found, I started this a little over a decade ago, maybe 12, 13 years ago, writing in this area, and I just found there's a ton of people who are really interested in knowing what the research is telling us about the nature of human limits.
Is that the inspiration behind the book?
Yeah, it comes, the idea for the book, the idea of exploring human limits definitely comes from my experiences as a runner, that when you're out pushing your limits and trying to explore and expand them, you can't help wondering what defines them and how you can change them. But over the course of writing the book, and I started working on this book about 9 years ago, and over the course of writing it, my understanding and my conception of endurance really got a lot broader. I realized that it's the things that you're grappling with if you're running a marathon are very similar to things you're grappling with in a lot of other sports and to some extent in life in general. Like the way I ended up defining endurance was not sort of like how fast you can run a marathon, but it's the general definition is the struggle to continue against a mounting desire to stop. And you can feel that running a marathon. You can also feel that when you're doing your taxes or sitting through a long meeting. And the interesting thing to me is that it's not just a kind of a metaphor. But the processes in your brain, the need to push through that desire to stop, is actually very similar across all those things. Endurance is endurance in different domains.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought that was just spot on right there with anything in life. From, like you said, taxes, work, anything that you're doing that you just don't really want to do, but you have to, so you keep doing it. Yeah.
It's one of the great life skills. Really, is to do things you don't want to do. And as much as I love running, it's my sport. When you're out there, running hard. If I'm running a race, what I want to do is slow down, and I have to learn to overcome that initial response. And they've done studies now with elite athletes in different sports, not testing their physical strength, but testing their response inhibition, which is, they can use computerized tests to test their cognitive traits. And good athletes have better response inhibition, which is the same thing. The marshmallow test is really famous. You give a 4-year-old one marshmallow and say, you can eat the marshmallow now, or you can have, if you wait, you can have 2 marshmallows in 15 minutes. And, the kids who wait and get the 2 marshmallows tend to do better at a variety, in school and also in sports later in life. But they found that it's not just 4-year-olds. You can look at elite athletes, and the elites are better at this sort of holding off their initial urges and waiting or convincing themselves to keep doing things they don't want to do even than well-trained athletes who are less elite.
Exactly. I've noticed that just by observing, like the NBA. The players you can tell that are really focused and dedicated and do the right things tend to do better. LeBron, for example, I know a lot of it's physical, but you can also tell with, him or some of the other greats that a lot of it's, like you said, that endurance, that dedication, that determination.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, let's not undersell, as you said, the physical aspect of it. LeBron James wouldn't be LeBron James if he was 5'2". And the same, similarly, in every sport, there are physical traits you need, even if they're sometimes not as obvious as height. And there's also, you have to develop your body, and you have to do the years and years of training and develop the skills. So, of course, the physical part is super important, but that mental part, and like you said, seeing the long-term picture. A lot of it. Think of all the kind of 18-year-old first-round picks who have just tremendous physical skills, and sometimes it's hard to figure out who's 10 years later going to be an all-time great in a sport and who's going to have disappeared. And some of that is the ability to do the little things, to keep doing. Like everyone loves scoring the winning basket. Not everyone loves being in the gym for 5 hours, working on dribbling drills and things like that.
What are some of those key traits that determine great performance?
Well, first, as we were saying, there's a lot of things you have to do before the great performance in order to be ready for it. But one of the things that I found interesting was the role of the kind of internal monologue in your mind. And I should say, when I was competing, we sometimes, my track team in college had a sports psychologist that worked with us who taught us things about negative thought stopping. And we thought it was just a big joke. We didn't pay any attention to that because we didn't think it was serious. We thought, if you want to be a great runner, you have to have a good VO2 max, you have to have, efficient muscles and stuff, but you don't need to worry about the thoughts in your head. But in the course of researching this book, I came across a lot of recent research where they've been quantifying and testing and, getting people to identify the thoughts in their head, and if it's like, so I think of it in a running context. If you're in a race and halfway through the race, you're thinking, "Oh, this is so hard. I can't do this. This hurts too much." That can actually have an effect on how your brain is interpreting the signals from your body. So, if you want to keep running, it's not just whether your legs, your muscles can always keep going. It's a question of whether your brain is going to let your muscles keep going. And if you're telling yourself, "This is too hard. I can't do it," that's going to affect that decision. So, if you do some relatively simple changes, like learn to notice the thoughts that are in your head, and replace the negative ones with more positive ones, saying, "You trained for this, you're ready for this, you can do this." And it sounds like sort of hokey, but it found that it actually can enhance your endurance, and it's not just a placebo effect. By doing some positive self-talk, you're able to push farther into your physiological reserves. You're able to sort of push your core temperature a little higher and withstand more discomfort. So I think a lot, some of the great athletes of all time, it's not necessarily that they've learned this technique from sports psychologists. They do it intuitively. They have this powerful self-belief. They're able to believe in their abilities and keep pushing. And they're doing it intuitively. The rest of us can learn a little bit from them or from this sort of research in terms of how to be more like them, how to have less, counterproductive negative talk in the head, and how to tell yourself, "Yeah, you're ready for this. You can do this. Keep pushing," so that you don't shoot yourself in the foot.
So, in other words, a smile can boost your endurance.
Yeah, and it's funny you should say that, because that is one of the examples in the book, a classic example of something that I would have just laughed at before I started looking into this research. And there's a guy, the Olympic marathon champion from the last Olympics, Eliud Kipchoge from Kenya. He's kind of famous for, in the final miles of the marathon, he'll be deliberately smiling to himself, and you think, what is he doing? Like, what is wrong with this guy? And his explanation is, "Look, I don't just run with my legs. I run with my heart and my mind. And by smiling, I'm able to sort of tell my legs that it's okay to keep going." Again, that sounds like a silly kind of, whatever works for him, but it sounds silly. But just in the last few months, there have been some studies where they investigated, okay, let's put runners on a treadmill and we'll tell them to smile and see what happens. And when they did that, the runners got about 2% less, more efficient. So they're burning 2% less energy to sustain the same pace, because by smiling, they're helping relax their upper body, they're moving more efficiently, and they're changing how their brains interpret the signals from the rest of your body. So a smile, it makes a difference, and probably makes you a more pleasant person to be around, too.
So, can a person actually, with being able to trick their brain and being able to increase their physical limits, can they push themselves too far?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Here's the example that I think about. The most simple kind of pushing the limits task that I can think about is holding your breath. Like, let's forget about sports, forget about rules, forget about anything. Just hold your breath. And, how close can you push to your limits, and is it dangerous? Well, maybe hold my breath for 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, and then it feels like I've hit a true physical limit. Like, I have to breathe. This is not optional. And in reality, that's not the case. In reality, what I'm feeling is a kind of orange light or a yellow light, not a red light. I'm feeling a warning signal generated by the levels of carbon dioxide in my blood. I'm not actually out of oxygen. So if you talk to trained freedivers, they'd learn to ignore that warning signal and push beyond it. And the record for breath holding, with no tricks, no like breathing oxygen or pure oxygen or anything, they can hold. The record for breath holding is 11 minutes and 35 seconds. So there's a huge gap between where I feel like my limits are and where the actual limits are. So for most of us, 99.999% of the time, you can push your limits as hard as you want, and it's very, very difficult to get into any real danger zone unless it's like in really hot conditions. Sometimes the warning signals aren't as accurate. So that's a long answer to your question, but I would say for most of us, it's okay to keep pushing your limits as long as it's not like, if you've broken a leg or something, then you should stop. But if you're just feeling tired, you can push it. And, if I stepped out the door right now and decided I'm going to run till I fall unconscious, I wouldn't be able to do it. I would feel too tired before I could actually do myself any damage.
So tell us about the top secret Nike facilities.
Yeah, so last year I had a chance to spend about 6 months doing some behind-the-scenes reporting on a project that Nike ran called Breaking 2, where they spent a couple years, they had a couple dozen scientists working on this, and they spent probably tens of millions of dollars trying to create a project that would allow someone to run a sub-2-hour marathon. And the world record right now is 2:02:57, so they were aiming to take about 3 minutes off the world record, which would be unprecedented at this time. And it was pretty interesting. They put a lot of science into it. They developed a new type of running shoe that has a carbon fiber plate in the sole that helps kind of propel the runners forward. They had a computer program analyzing the training every day of each of. They selected 3 runners to try this, and they ended up to optimize the conditions. They ended up hiring a Formula One racetrack in northern Italy, in Monza, to hold the race because it had just the right elevation, the right weather, nice flat track with very gentle curves. So they held the race there last May, and the runner I mentioned before, Eliud Kipchoge, the Olympic champion, he ended up running 2 flat, 2 hours, 0 minutes, and 25 seconds. So he just missed the 2-hour barrier, but it was still way faster than the world record. Although it doesn't count as a world record because he had some illegal pacing from other runners. But it was really interesting to see what happens when you try and optimize all the limits to help a runner just absolutely push to his maximum. And what I came away with was not so much the idea that that technology really helped Kipchoge run so fast. It was more that Kipchoge he's kind of like the Yoda of marathon running. He has this aura of supreme self-confidence, but very quiet self-confidence, not arrogant. He just believes in himself. And my feeling was that that whole project, the most impressive thing was his mental game as opposed to the technology that Nike brought.
So do you think those shoes will be going on sale anytime soon?
They are on sale, and they are not inexpensive. They are $350 for a pair. They're called the Vaporfly shoes, and what the lab testing shows is that they make you about 4% more efficient. So you burn 4% less energy to run at any given pace, which is a lot. It's been pretty controversial. There's some critics suggest that they should be banned because they're so effective that they should be illegal. And to be fair, it's like one of the nice things about running is that it's a simple sport, right? You just all you need is you don't need anything. It's just mano a mano. You race against each other, and when you start saying, well, if you're going to be competitive, you need to spend $350 on a pair of shoes, that kind of takes it away from the simple origins of the sport. But yeah, it's a tough judgment to make. But certainly the shoes are interesting, and they've created quite a splash in the running world.
What other things are changing the paradigms in endurance? What type of other research is going in out there?
Well, I'll tell you one that's another one that's very, very interesting and maybe also a little bit worrying. There's been a lot of work in electric brain stimulation lately, where essentially, and let me start by saying, do not try this at home, but it is actually very simple. You can take basically the equivalent of a 9-volt battery, run a couple of wires to a couple of electrodes that you place on your scalp, and you run a weak electric current through your head. Very weak, like it's not enough to cause convulsions or anything like that. It just changes the sensitivity of the neurons depending on where you put the electrodes, and you can change your perception of effort basically. So you don't change. Let's say you're running or something like that. It doesn't change what's going on in your heart. How hard your heart is pounding or how tired your muscles are, but it changes how your brain interprets those signals and just feels a little bit easier. And so as a result, you're able to push harder or push for a little longer or go a little faster. So this is pretty interesting. That it's kind of a really good demonstration of the fact that in a lot of cases, limits that feel physical are actually controlled by your brain, because you're able to change your physical limits just by running a little bit of electricity through your brain. Now, is this a good thing for athletes to do? I'm not so sure, but it is something that's out there now, and I know there were at least some athletes at the Winter Olympics over the last few weeks who were. There were some athletes on the U.S. team, on the U.S. Nordic combined team, who were using electric brain stimulation, and I'm sure there were others that we don't know about. So this is kind of the next frontier of okay, if endurance is in the brain, how do we alter the brain to get more out of ourselves? And I certainly. I have a couple daughters. I don't necessarily want to think about them growing up to be like when they get to high school thinking, okay, Dad, let's head to the hardware store so we can get some batteries because we've got a big volleyball game tonight or something. That's not really what I want to imagine, but it is an interesting sort of new frontier of the search for endurance.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. That does not sound safe. Now, I mean, I'm sure the Team USA people probably had like a specifically designed device as opposed to just making it by scratch. At least I would hope.
Yeah, they had a device made by a Silicon Valley company called Halo Neuroscience, and so that's definitely better than going to a hardware store. But still I have some misgivings, even with a good professionally made device. Like that's not really how I imagine sports to be. Like what sports is all about, but it's something to debate because it's I'm not the one who gets to decide what everyone else thinks is appropriate in sports, but I certainly have a few misgivings.
I know what you mean. Actually, it's funny. Chuck Palahniuk, the author of Fight Club, actually has a short story that's similar, where people were using CPR or not CPR, the recovery paddles to do something similar. Yeah. So and of course with him, it goes even crazier.
Well, it sort of reminds me of some of the research that I came across from my book. There were studies back in the 1950s and 60s where they're trying to figure out this idea of like hysterical strength. If you're sort of really shocked or scared or fearing for your life, can you get more strength out of yourself? And one of the studies they did, they were having people lift as much weight as they could. And then some of the time the researchers would sneak up behind the subject and fire a pistol in their ear just to scare the crap out of them. And under those circumstances, they were able to lift about 7% more weight. So there's something to the idea of getting really, surprised or shocked or scared by something that allows you to dig a little deeper. But whether you choose to use the CPR paddles or electric brain stimulation, that's another question.
So tell us a little bit about your time with Runner's World and Jockology.
Yeah, so I spent about 5 years as a regular columnist for Runner's World, writing a column called Sweat Science, where the basic goal was what I would do a few times a week, 2 or 3 times a week. I would just be looking through scientific journals, because there's a bunch of journals that look into sports science and endurance and things like that, and finding new studies and just trying to explain what they meant about, hydration or nutrition or pacing or training, and things like that. And so I did that until last fall, last September. Then I decided to leave Runner's World and move over to Outside Magazine, where I am now. Doing stuff, well, I still do something similar. I do the Sweat Science column for them, but it allows me to be a little bit broader because, as much as I love running, at a certain point you run out of things to say about the same thing. So instead of just writing about running now, I have a chance to look into the research on a much broader set of things, whether that, I can incorporate all sorts of endurance sports, cycling and rock climbing and swimming and triathlons and just outdoor adventure more generally, because I really enjoy getting out on trips in the backcountry, whether it's canoeing or hiking and things like that. So, so that's the basic theme, though, that I'm looking into the science of various endurance activities and trying to understand, not necessarily, in terms of covering endurance sports, not necessarily who won, but why they won and how they won.
Who would you like to thank for helping you with the book?
Yeah, I've got a long list of people over the last 9 years that have made a big difference. Obviously, my family has been important. We were chatting before we went on before we turned on the recorder about having kids. I've got a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, or at least a 4-year-old, and my younger one's just about to turn 2. So while writing this book, my wife and I had these 2 kids. And that's, as you know, takes a lot of energy and a lot of time. So I was really lucky that my parents live near me in Toronto, and it's been enormously helpful in terms of helping me with enough childcare that I was able to get the time I needed to write the book. So, so certainly, family's a big part. I've had some really good mentors in sports journalism and science journalism. For example, David Epstein is a guy who used to write for Sports Illustrated, and he wrote a book a few years ago called The Sports Gene, which I would say is the best sports science book out there about the nature of athletic success and what goes into it. And so he's been a great mentor in terms of helping to guide me along the road to writing a sports science book. Andy Burfoot is a former Boston Marathon champion who has been an editor of Runner's World. He was an editor of Runner's World for many years, and he was also a huge mentor. So people like that, and actually Malcolm Gladwell, I should mention too, who's obviously a very successful writer and journalist. He was kind enough to write the foreword for my book, and a lot of people don't realize what a great runner Malcolm Gladwell is. He was a teen phenom, but even now in his 50s, he can run pretty close to a 5-minute mile. So guys like that have played a really big role in making sure, in helping me to understand, how to go about this process and to learn about all the different sort of topics that I've been writing about.
Wow. So it sounds like there was a bit of a collaboration, but definitely has paid off, and I'm sure anybody who's into running or science would definitely be thrilled to get a copy of this and just learn some of the techniques.
Well, yeah, thanks so much. It's definitely been a long journey, but it's exciting to have the book out there, and I really feel that it's a book that speaks to anyone who is interested in kind of pushing their limits and understanding the nature of those limits and how to get beyond them.
Before I let you go, social media, websites, that kind of thing, or where you do your writing nowadays, how can fans learn more about you and the book?
Yeah, probably the easiest place to find me is on Twitter, where my handle is Sweat Science, just all one word, Sweat Science. So anytime I write anything, I'll post it there, and I'm also interacting with people, and there's links to the book. For more detailed information, my website is alexhutchinson.net, and that has a bio and also links to my previous books and things like that.
Excellent. And I'm guessing the book is available pretty much all the major sites, that kind of thing?
Yeah, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all that stuff, and I would also, say at your local independent bookstore, if they don't have it, they can easily order it for you. So there's lots of options, and I encourage people to check out the places in their local neighborhood.
Excellent. We'd like to thank our guest, Alex Hutchinson, author of Endurance, for coming on the Gruel and Truth Radio Network today.
Thanks so much, James. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Welcome. Thank you.